It's so easy to be average. It takes a little something to be special, doesn't it? It takes a little something special to be a great player. Did you push yourself to be great today?
Yeah. The man of Scarlet and Gray. Yeah.
Let's go.
The man of Scarlet and Gray. What we reading now? Who we listen to? Who we rocking with hard?
The man of Scarlet and Gray.
Who we vibing with? Who we riding with? Who we clapping for love?
The man of Scarlet and Gray.
What we reading now? Who we listen to? Who we rocking with
The
hard?
man of Scarlet and Gray.
Who we vibing with? Who we riding with? Who we clapping for
The man
love?
of Scarlet and Gray.
It's time for it. You ready for it? It's my time. You better know it. It's go Bucks. Every time. Hating on us, you better.
Your undisputed source of all things Ohio State. This is the Men of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. Here's your hosts, Shannon Summers and Chip Minnick.
The man of Scarlet and Gray.
Buckeye Nation, welcome to another new and exciting episode of Men of the Scarlet and Gray podcast here on Buckeye Sports Radio, a V-Sporto channel, bringing you all Buckeyes all the time. I'm Shannon Summers, a contributor and editor at menofthescarletandgray.com. As always, I'm thrilled to be joined by my colleague, Chip Minnick, who is also a contributor and editor at menofthescarletandgray.com. How are we doing today, Chip? You ready to bring our listeners another great show?
Absolutely. It's ready. The part of the season that we've all been counting on and looking forward to is Michigan State. Let's get to it.
Sparty's coming. Today on the show, we will be reviewing the Illinois game. Everybody's got a problem with it. Apparently, we didn't do good enough. We will discuss the Michigan State Spartans with Hondo Carpenter from SpartanNation.com. We also have been sent some more great questions for the Ask Motsag segment. And, of course, we will be doing our Motsag Pick'ems. But before we get into it, we want to remind you to download the free Buckeye Sports Radio's iOS and Android apps so you can have your Buckeyes with you wherever you go, and follow the channel on Twitter at Buckeyes Radio.
After further review.
JT Barrett with a hand clap, gets the snap, fakes the handoff, looks to throw, lofts to the left side for Michael Thomas toward the end zone. Got it for a touchdown, Michael Thomas. First and goal, Ohio State at the Illinois 6, snap to Barrett. Running at left side, Barrett. He gets to the 5. Barrett goes to the end zone for the touchdown. He took a big stick as he ran it to the left corner of the end zone, but JT Barrett takes it in from 5 yards out, and Ohio State's lead has improved now thanks to that run by Barrett. Second and goal, Barrett gets quickly in a shotgun with Elliott on his right-hand side. Snap to Barrett. Hands it to Elliott, and he knifes his way in for the touchdown. Ezekiel Elliott, who went over right guard on a 1-yard run. It is his 15th rushing touchdown of the season, and Ohio State owns a 20-3 lead over Illinois. Curtis Samuel and Michael Thomas wide to the right. Jalen Marshall flanked to the left. Quarterback J.T. Barrett in the shotgun. Barrett is going to hand it Elliott, running straight ahead, 5-yard line, goal line, or touchdown. Ezekiel Elliott, his second of the day on a 10-yard run, and the Buckeyes capitalize after a turnover.
Chip, the Buckeyes went out to Champaign. They were, I believe, 17-point favorites in the game. They came out with a 28-3 win. The national media is in an outcry that Ohio State is not the team that everybody's thinking. Everybody's all up in arms thinking that basically Ohio State's got some issues. What are your thoughts of what you've seen on Saturday?
Well, I want to give credit to Illinois. I thought they played hard, and something that we discussed last week with Robert that I think a lot of the national media is either overlooking or forgetting is that Illinois defensively was, ranked in the top 30 in the country. They played Ohio State very difficult, very challenging. And I think some of the challenges Ohio State had were self-inflicted, with the missed field goal by, Sean Nurnberger at the beginning, and some of the blown calls by the officials where JT Barrett was in, but they didn't call it such. But let's look at the positive. And what I mean by that is Ohio State's rush defense has been tremendous. They limited Illinois to 20 yards rushing on 25 carries. So that averages out to 0.8 yards per carry. The last 2 games, Ohio State has only allowed 53 yards rushing to their opponent's total and 34 points over their last 4 games. So the defense is really kind of starting to peak where at this time of the season, that's what you want. Another positive is Ezekiel Elliott passed Tim Spencer on the all-time Ohio State rushing chart, and he is within striking distance of Eddie George to become the second all-time leading rusher. Elliott has 1,425 yards for the season, and he still has games remaining. So we're at that point of the season. We're going to be talking about Michigan State and that team up north, but we're at the games that can truly boost his Heisman Trophy candidacy.
Well, yeah, you're going against, I believe, the number 18 ranked defense with Michigan State this week, and I think that team up north is number 2 in the rushing defense or something like that. It's going to be insane for him, but I agree. The one problem I had watching the game, number one, it seemed like they could have given Zeke maybe a couple less carries and just gave Samuel some, because it just seemed like it was too much in a row. Maybe they're just gearing him up for what's about to happen. I just think it might have been a little bit too much on Saturday. That's just my opinion on that. I agree with what Chris Spielman was saying. Why are they not trying to throw the ball down the field? There was not any kind of aggressive downfield. We've been talking about this all year. It's really driving me crazy with the offensive coordinators of not trying to go deep when you've got 9 people in the box staring you down. I just don't understand it. I know Herman last year, he would have killed you for that and crushed you. We're just not aggressive in that. Is it something that they're holding back for this week against Michigan State and next week against that team up north, or what? I have no clue. But, when the announcer, Grant, he's watched a lot of Ohio State games, and he's, to me, he is Mr. Ohio State. But when he's sitting there saying, what the hell's wrong with you? Use Braxton down the field and you're not doing it. Something's wrong. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree. I think, we've collectively lamented the play calling over the season, the idea of the opposition's putting 8 or 9 men in the box, everything you talked about it. So we can only hope that Ohio State, maybe they're holding back for Michigan State, maybe for that team up north. I think, if there's something disconcerting about the performance of Ohio State against Illinois, is that Ohio State's offensive line, which has I'm just going to say they have a veteran offensive line, because at this point of the season, Chase Ferris, even though he is the only new starter at this point of the season, 10 games in, all right, he's played enough to be considered, a veteran in my eyes.
Well, plus he played some last year too, so you're right.
So the pass protection issues and Chase Ferris, Billy Price, Jacoby Boren to a certain extent having tough games against Illinois, and as I mentioned a few moments ago, Illinois has a strong defensive line, but it's concerning leaning into these next 2 games, because Michigan State has arguably the best defensive line in the country with Shalik Calhoun and Malik McDowell, and that team up north has a strong defensive line. So Ohio State will need to not only protect better, but I'm thinking possibly giving JT Barrett a moving pocket with rollouts and quarterback waggles to provide more time in the passing game. As I mentioned a few moments ago, our audience, you and I, we've talked how the opponents are putting 8 or 9 men in the box. That is a guarantee that you will see Michigan State and that team up north do the next 2 weeks, because everyone knows that Ezekiel Elliott is the engine for Ohio State offensively. The run blocking by the offensive line has been great, obviously with Ezekiel Elliott being over 1,400 yards. The pass protection, that needs to be the focus for this week. That needs to be improved for the stretch run. So for Ohio State to win the next 2 games, the passing game will prove to be the difference. The pass protection that the offensive line can generate. So I'm looking for Ohio State in the next couple games. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm looking for Ohio State to use the pass to set up the run game. It's an old San Francisco 49er Bill Walsh concept of the idea of the West Coast offense is that will open up the run game as we complained about the 8 or 9 men in the box. It's going to force those safeties to play back if the passing game, the short intermediate passing game. So maybe Nick Vannett might become more of a primary target in the next couple games than we have seen so far this season.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of disconcerting sometimes. You're not using your tight ends as much as, I've been saying it for 2 years now. You have to use your tight ends more. They haven't been consistent on that. The simple fact of trying to get the ball down the field, everybody was saying it's all Cardell. I think this last Saturday it proved this is not all Cardell. And I'm not saying anything against JT or anything because he had the same kind of issues somewhat as Cardell had, except for he's a little bit faster. So he was able to, was at that 4th and 3 or 4th and whatever, and he was able to bust out and get the first down. But it's disconcerting, and I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith in the offensive coordinators, and I don't like that. Now, defensively, I agree with you. I know Joey Bosa, he slid down to probably, 3rd, 4th, round with his false starts. Or not his false starts, but his offsides.
Hardly.
But that dude was just a one-man wrecking crew. They were triple teaming him. And he still got through. I mean, he didn't get the quarterback, but he still broke through with a triple team. And I'm just like, what? That dude is a beast. So defense, just keep doing what you're doing. The good thing about going against the next 2 opponents is, especially the last opponent for the regular season, their offenses are that good. I think we said last week or the week before, they've really concentrated on stopping the run finally. And it looks like they're making a heck of a lot of progress, which is a good thing. You are listening to Men in the Scarlet and Gray podcast on Buckeye Sports Radio, a V-Sporto channel.
Baby, I got what you need. Do you know I got it? All I'm asking is for a little respect.
It's the story of my life. No respect. I don't get no respect.
The only thing that fires him up more than politics is talking about the disrespected Michigan State Spartans. Helping us preview Dantonio's team, let's welcome in SpartanNation.com's Hondo Carpenter.
Okay, as everybody knows, this is the week that everybody in the Big Ten's been looking forward to. The Battle of Michigan State against Ohio State. Sparty's bringing ESPN's Game Day for the first time since 2015 to Columbus with them. We have Hondo Carpenter from Spartan Nation joining us to talk about the Spartans. Chip, why don't you go ahead and start off with your questions?
Well, the first question I had, Hondo, is Michigan State under Coach Dantonio has gained a reputation for developing players into quality college players and eventual NFL draft choices. So players like Darqueze Dennard and Trey Waynes are examples our audience may be familiar with. Connor Cook's a really good example this season. Can you give us some insight as to why Coach Dantonio and his staff have done such a tremendous job not only evaluating talent, but what they do to cultivate it so well?
First of all, I think that's a great question. My good buddy, Jim Tressel, your former head coach, told me I was up in his office once when Mark had just taken the Cincinnati job and we were visiting, and he said to me that Mark Dantonio was the greatest evaluator of talent that he had ever met. He said, I just cannot believe that guy and his ability to look at. Now, remember, those of you that know Jim, and I know him on a personal level, know he's not one who's prone to hyperbole.
Right.
So when he gives a compliment like that, he means it. And it was fascinating to me just what he said. And I think Dantonio does a great job of looking at talent, evaluating talent, and seeing it. And one of the things he does is, like, I'll give you an example. So Dantonio is sitting on a couch with Darqueze Dennard, and he says, I'm going to make you an offer to come play football at Michigan State. And you may remember, Darqueze had no offers. I mean, he was from Georgia. No SEC schools wanted him, just small schools. And he said, but one condition. Darqueze said, what's that, coach? He said that you're going to have a chance to go early to the NFL, and you have to promise me you're going to stay till your degree is finished.
Wow.
And Darqueze kind of looked at him. Darqueze looked at him like he was from Mars. And Dantonio says, if you don't think you're good enough to go early, then I don't want you here. He goes, but when I watch you play, you're an early NFL guy. And Darqueze agreed. So when Darqueze, after his senior year, everyone thought he was going to go early to the pros, I broke the story that he was staying because he'd made a promise to Dantonio, and his mom wasn't about to even remotely consider it. And, as a matter of fact, they got angry at people suggesting he would break his word. And it's the same way with Le'Veon Bell. When he signed on signing day, Don Treadwell, the offensive coordinator, came to me and said, that's the best running back we've recruited. He's going early to the NFL, and you can write it now. And if it doesn't happen, you can go back to this day and say, I'm the one who told you that, and evidently I got it wrong. I mean, I can go through the line. Kirk Cousins is another one. Shalik Calhoun. I mean, I can just go name after name of guys who've grown into stars. Like Jim Tressel said to me, that he's the best evaluator of talent he's seen. And Mark Dantonio's philosophy is this. If you're a man of character and you are athletic and you love football, I can teach you to play any position, because it's like teaching a kid math. If a kid has the desire to do it and the ability to learn, any good teacher can teach him starting in kindergarten. And he believes that football coaches make it too difficult. And he was like that at Ohio State. You know, the people make it difficult, that it's just a game to be played. And when they do that, they have success, and they teach that. And I think that's one of the reasons he's so successful.
That's a tremendous story. Thank you for sharing that. And, you know, a guy like L.J. Scott or Malik McDowell or Lawrence Thomas, those are players that both Ohio State and Michigan State wanted. So can you kind of give some insight on, you know, how great of a player in your estimation L.J. Scott's going to become?
I think L.J. Scott has a chance to be a great one, but you have to remember there's a lot of great ones ahead of him. I mean, Michigan State now is in a place where this is the third year in a row where they have multiple players that are going to play in the NFL that aren't even going to get on the field this year. You saw earlier where, you know, they lost 5 defensive backs at one point, 3 of them starters, for long periods of time. And it didn't, you know, they kept going. They kept winning. Maybe they weren't winning pretty, but they found a way to win. They lost 5 offensive linemen. Michigan State's a team that you could take out their entire first string, offense, defense, and special teams, and they'd still be bowl eligible. So, I mean, again, everyone looks at these guys as 5-star guys or whatever, and that may be true, but they still have to play a lot of guys ahead of them. Dantonio has lost some recruits because he won't promise playing time. He says, it's disrespectful to the guys I have on my squad. You have to come in here and get it. And he wants a particular player with an edge on his shoulder. And if he has a guy that he sees as a 2-star and he thinks as a 5-star, and he has a chance to take him, or a guy that's a 5-star, everyone already claims it, he'll take the 2-star guy because he thinks they have a chip on their shoulder and an edge. And that's why he's been so successful.
So a quick question I have for you is, in my opinion, this rivalry has become just even more intense since Urban Meyer took over Ohio State in 2012. The last 4 games between Ohio State and Michigan State, it's split. Michigan State won 2011. Michigan State knocked Ohio State out of the BCS championship by defeating them in the Big Ten championship in 2013. It's been super tight by my estimation, averaging up the points. It's 24 points apiece for Ohio State, Michigan State. What's your analysis on why this rivalry has become even more intense?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, because these two teams now are playing for something that matters. You know, I said years ago, and I made Spartan fans angry, the Michigan State game was a rivalry for Michigan State against Michigan, but it wasn't one for Michigan, and they shouldn't get mad when they said it wasn't. And now they've won 7 of 8, and it's quite a big rivalry. But I think, first of all, it's because of the stage they're playing on, number one. But I think, number two, is, Mark Dantonio is from Ohio. He coached there with Jim Tressel. He still has multiple friends in your athletic department, in your football program. Michigan State's #1 recruiting down after Michigan is Ohio. There's so many Ohio kids. This is really like a family reunion get-together, and I think that's what makes it even more special.
Those are the questions I had, Shannon. So if you want to hit Hondo with what questions you had.
Okay, piggybacking on the recruiting and stuff that you mentioned, that Dantonio won't promise any kind of playing time. From us outsiders, it seems like there's been a rash of players who have recently decommitted. I think 4 within the last, say, 2 weeks or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Now, is that have something to do with this, or is there something possibly with the rumors of Dantonio to South Carolina just because of the fact that he used to play for him?
Well, first of all, no one is around here is even remotely concerned. I will tell you this definitively as a journalist. Mark Dantonio is not leaving for South Carolina. He would talk to them if they asked out of respect because it's his alma mater, and he would help them find a coach if they asked for his help, but he's not going there. I can tell you that. He has not even been back to campus since the day he graduated. So he's not going there, period. I won't tell you what because I haven't said it, but I've maintained for years there's only one college job I think he would even interview for. I'm not even sure if he would take it anymore, and it's not Ohio State. I'll just leave it at that. So he's not going anywhere. I think it has a lot to do with a couple of things. First of all, some of those guys are at positions that are very deep in talent. I mean, look at L.J. Scott, guys. He can hardly get on the field. He was on for 2 plays last week, and he's a true freshman that didn't redshirt. I think that's a big deal. You look at, Naquan Jones, the terrific defensive line player out of Chicago, and you look at the fact that there is a couple of NFL guys that are going to play in the NFL on the defensive line that aren't even getting on the field this year for Michigan State. And it's loaded with talent, and other schools are coming in, good schools, good educations, good football programs, good traditions, and being able to say to them, do you want to go somewhere where, L.J. Scott can't even get on the field hardly? I mean, he's run a little bit, but he hasn't done much, and all 4 of the other running backs are returning next year. If you're a Naquan Jones, you look at that. If you're, a Hunter Rison and you're committed as a sophomore and you're not sure yet what you want to do, and you got Nick Saban and Alabama and others who have a relationship with your dad, I mean, you look at that. There's absolutely nothing to panic. I mean, look at Gavin Cupp, who you guys got. Great kid. Michigan State, really liked him, but he's from there and he wanted to be a Buckeye. You can't blame the kid for wanting if he has that chance, and he took it. And God bless him. I hope he has a great career. He's a terrific kid. I mean, those are all legitimate things, and it's funny when I do radio shows around the country, if it's in towns with bigger schools, I remind them they've lost decommitments as well. If it's smaller schools, I remind them that they don't lose decommitments because they don't necessarily get players that everybody wants. And Michigan State understands that every recruit that they offer, lots of people want. And so, yeah, there's been 5 decommitments this year, only 3 in the previous 8 years under Dantonio. But it's not because he's going anywhere, because I can tell you definitively he's not.
Well, I'm glad you put that to rest, because I've always been under the impression that, looking at South Carolina and Michigan State, that South Carolina is not a step up in any means as far as being a better program or a better university than Michigan State.
Yeah, that's wishful thinking on South Carolina's part, in my estimation.
Exactly.
Well, I will tell you this, and I said this on a South Carolina radio show the other day. If you're pinning your hopes to Mark Dantonio being your head coach, then you should be pinning your hopes to Barack Obama being able to devise some type of a foreign policy that makes sense. Both of them are fairyland, and neither one of them makes sense to me.
There you go. The Buckeyes had the number 11th ranked rushing attack in the nation, averaging 244.8 yards per game. Michigan State's got the number 18th run-stopping defense. In your opinion, who do you think is going to come out as the victor in this battle?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. One of the misnomers that I have seen about last year's game, and I talked to Dantonio about this today, and he agreed with me, was the ability to run the ball. And the narrative is that Ohio State's offense came and went aerial and destroyed Michigan State, and that's absolutely not what happened. Michigan State went up 28-14, but the touchdown that gave them the lead was called back on a hold. Then Michigan State did an absolutely terrible play call that failed and they missed the field goal, and then boom, Ohio State went down and got momentum. And when Ohio State took off, it was with the running game. If Ohio State's going to beat Michigan State and Columbus on Saturday, and I certainly have them favored in my opinion, it's going to be with Zeke Elliott and JT Barrett running the football. I don't think they're just going to throw it down their throat. Now, if I'm Michigan State, I'm going to line up and I'm going to load the box, and I'm going to tell JT Barrett, if you're going to beat me, your arm's going to have to do it.
Exactly.
And listen, there's no doubt he has tremendous talent. I think Braxton Miller is way underrated. But I'm going to tell you this. Nick Saban once told me something that I found fascinating. He said the only thing harder than winning a national championship is winning 2 in a row, because you have to find a way to motivate guys. It's very difficult. They've been there. They've done it. They've heard all the praise and accolades. I've watched every Ohio State game this year. You know, the minor ones against teams that don't matter, I've watched once, but the significant ones as many as 9 times. And I'll tell you this, they're playing to me as a team that's almost bored. And that's dangerous because they're so talented and they're so good at every position. So my question is, if they come in just expecting to railroad Michigan State, because here's one thing, Michigan State's going to play them for 60 minutes. And it doesn't matter how big of a lead, how small of a lead, whether Michigan State has a lead. They're going to come in battle. And it's going to be interesting for me to see, does Ohio State show up and play to their ability? If they play to their ability, the game's over. But if they play bored, if they make mental mistakes, if they allow Michigan State to stick around, I think Michigan State can absolutely beat them. And so to me, that's going to be the narrative, is Zeke Elliott's ability to run the ball, and when JT has to throw, is he able to do it? Not that he doesn't have the talent. I'm not being disrespectful. But is Michigan State able to get enough pressure? Because I think if JT Barrett has a weakness, and I think he's a great quarterback, I want to make sure it's very clear. I have tremendous respect, and what a great kid he is, regardless of the problem that happened. I'd like to meet a college student that hasn't had an issue. But he's a great kid. And my answer to them would be, JT Barrett, to me, struggles when he has to make bang-bang decisions. When he has to do that throwing the football, I think is when he's vulnerable. So if you're Michigan State, I would blitz every single down, and I would just absolutely dare them to beat me through the air. And I would say to my defensive line, if you can't get to him, we can't win. And I think that's the narrative when Ohio State's on offense.
Now, to expand on that, since you said you've seen every game of Ohio State's this year, how much do you think that the coaching staff, the offensive coordinators, are holding the team back by not figuring out how to use their weapons that they have? Or do you think it's just the players themselves?
No, I don't think it's the players themselves. They're proven winners. I think that the only thing worse than Michigan State's offensive play call, the only thing worse than Ohio State's offensive coaching this year and play calling has been Michigan State. And I think, obviously, Urban Meyer is a very good coach. No, I mean, anyone that disputes that's just a partisan idiot and probably lives in Ann Arbor. But the point of the matter is that he doesn't coach alone. This isn't like a Tom Izzo-led program or a Thad Matta-led program, where that one coach makes such a difference. And I think that one of the strengths of Urban Meyer is he brings good coaches around him. But you saw him start to struggle in Florida when he lost some key coordinators. And I think you're seeing in Houston where Herman was outstanding, absolutely outstanding. And I think he's going to have his picks of his job. I know people down in Houston think he's going to stay there, but I think you lost a great coach, and you're trying to fill the void and figure it out. And I think there's been times where you just shake your head at some of the play calling at Ohio State. And listen, I think Michigan State's been worse. So I'm not out here being a partisan hack. But I just think when you just say, well, what are you doing? It's like you got a Ferrari and you're putting it in the garage to drive a Chevette. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't get it. And so, I think Ohio State has all the weapons if they'll just get out of their way. Quit trying to be cute, trying to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes people know what you're going to do, but can they stop you? Just go overpower them and do it.
It's so nice to hear somebody from another school say the same exact thing that we've been saying for weeks now.
Let me just say this to you. I think Indiana has a terrific passing game, but you and Michigan State should be embarrassed that they were in that game. They should be embarrassed. If you're Ohio State and you're paying all the money you do for seat licenses and donations, and you're paying your coaching staff what you're paying them, and you have the talent that you have, that's a team that's bored. That's a team playing down to the level of competition. Now, before you think I'm cutting any slack and ripping Ohio State, I went after Michigan State for beating Purdue by a field goal and for 3.5 quarters letting Indiana stick around. So I'm not playing partisan here. I'm just telling you, that's embarrassing. You know, there's nothing wrong to losing a football game to a good team that's better than you. But when you have every advantage, and Indiana has none, and you allow them to stick around where you could have lost that game, that's embarrassing. That's an embarrassing win for the defending national title. And that means when you have kids that are bored, it goes back to what Nick said, and to me that goes back to coaching. Because you know what? Your defensive coaches are finding a way to motivate your guys.
Oh, you're right. You're right. That's an excellent point.
Shannon, can I jump in here real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
So, Hondo, I've got to ask this because you brought up the Michigan State offensive play callers. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim Bowman is involved in that, and he was the lightning rod of criticism for so many years during the Tressel years. Are you identifying Bowman for some of your criticism? Because like I said, I think all these points that you've been raising, Shannon and I have raised this over the last several weeks on our offensive side of the ball.
Well, let me just tell you this. Jim Bowman was a gift from God when he came here to Michigan State, and I couldn't believe all the idiotic Bucknut fans. I guess there's a website there. I'm not trying to promote them, but Buckeye fans who were writing about, oh, you can have them and we don't want them. Jim Bowman has been awesome since he's been here, and he's not a play caller at Michigan State.
Okay.
He's involved in game planning, and he does a lot. Jim Bowman, is the godfather here. Other than now that Narduzzi's gone, he's the most important assistant. Michigan State would not have won a Rose Bowl. They would not have won a Cotton Bowl and been the only team in the country to finish in the top 5 and win BCS bowl games in the last 2 years. The only team in the country. That's Jim Bowman all over it. He is a brilliant a brilliant schemer, a brilliant advisor. Every position he coaches gets better. Jim Bowman is an incredible blessing. And what's funny is Jim Tressel's my friend. I'm close to Jim. And people get mad and blame Bowles for what Tressel wanted. And you know what? I'm not blaming anyone at Michigan State other than Mark Dantonio, and he's my friend as well. But I asked him point blank about the play calling, and he said, it's on me. And he says at the end of the game, this is what I want done. Those guys have a boss, and they're going to do what they want. And I think it goes back to the Tressel and Dantonio philosophy a little bit. And that's what I'm critical of. I certainly think Mark Dantonio has been the greatest thing to happen at Michigan State. Not saying the guy should be gone. Are you kidding me? They should erect a statue to him. But the play calling this year has been abysmal. And I will tell you this, if they stay on the road that they've been all year, other than at Nebraska, they're going to lose big at the shoe. And they need to come out there on the attack, and they need to let Ohio State know. They're playing with house money. Michigan State, nobody's respecting them. At Mark Dantonio's press conference today, they had reporters that wanted to talk about the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry. They didn't want to talk about this. And he laughed them off. And you know what? They're loose. Michigan State's loose. Antonio's told them, nobody expects you to win. And what happens? What happens every time? The players laughed today when they were asked about the point spread, and they go, what's new? No one ever picks us. And this is only a team that goes out and wins big games. So, no, I'm critical. And if Urban's the one overriding the offensive coordinators or the offensive play callers at Ohio State, I'm not close enough to know that. Then that's on him. And if he's not, that's on his guys. And because when it comes to Michigan State, that's not on Bowles, that's on Mark Dantonio.
Well, I will say that it's rather ominous that the team that has been winning the last several times that Michigan State and Ohio State have played has usually been the road team. And I say that's ominous for an Ohio State fan perspective.
Well, here's the whole deal. Let me be very blunt. If Ohio State plays like they've played all year, Michigan State's going to come in and punch them in the face and beat them. And I want to make something really clear. I think Ohio State's going to be up and jacked through the roof for this game. They're not dumb. Those are some smart players, some great kids. I know a bunch of players on your team, and those are good coaches. They know how big this is. But I'm just saying, if they come in, and I think you guys would agree, at times they've looked like that. This Michigan State team, I've been around here my whole life. I remember as a 5-year-old, up in the upper deck of Spartan Stadium at practice, catching punts and throwing them back down. And now I cover them 365 days a year. And I will tell you this, I've never been around a team this loose. They are ready for this game. They want this game. This game has been circled. And then Antonio has basically told them, no one's giving you a chance, so just go play and have fun. This is a game for them. And Connor Cook said today, I know what my teammates from Michigan feel like when we play in Ann Arbor, and now I get to experience it in Ohio State. And it's interesting to me how many, there's a lot of kids from Ohio on this team that Ohio State didn't want. They don't want them. And those kids all grew up Buckeye fans. And you don't think they're coming with a chip on their shoulder? And here's the deal. If they played this game 10 times, let's say Michigan State would win 3 or 4. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just picking a number. This only has to be one of the 3 or 4. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, can the Buckeyes, who I have not, and maybe I'm wrong, and you guys would disagree, I've not seen a game this year where I would say, wow, they look like the defending national champion. I mean, and now let me say this. I don't think they played their best football, and that's a compliment because I don't think neither is Michigan State. But having said that, can they turn the switch on? And that's a danger that Saban talked about with me about winning it back-to-back. And to me, that's what I want to see. Can they turn it? If I'm a Buckeye fan and they come into that stadium and turn it on, they better not turn it off again the rest of the year. I'm going to go through the roof. And if I'm a Buckeye fan and they don't turn it on, I think you see why Saban says it's so difficult to win back-to-back.
I would agree. I think there's been a lack of intensity for a full 60-minute game. I mean, there were you saw some glimpses against Virginia Tech, and you saw some glimpses against Rutgers, but you haven't seen a full 60-minute. Rutgers is probably the closest. I don't know, Shannon, you were there at Rutgers when Ohio State played, so maybe you have a different opinion, but that's just, I can't disagree with anything Hondo said in terms of the intensity.
No, he's hit everything on the head. I mean, it's exactly.
I mean, here's the deal. At some point, the light has to come on, or they have to lose. Now, listen. I want you to hear this because I'm not playing the fence here and being a homer. Michigan State did not play well this year. They still haven't played their best football, and they went into Nebraska, and Nebraska was jacked up. This was their season, and they saved it. And Michigan State got too conservative with 1:46 to go and cost themselves the game. That almost helped this team because it's reinvigorated them. They realize, okay, we can lose everything. This is a disadvantage that Ohio State is at right now. You haven't played your best. A loss, and you're done. It's over. Mm-hmm. And I think that if I'm a Buckeye fan, that scares me. Now, I want to make sure you hear this. I predicted on my TV show today an Ohio State win. So I'm not playing a homer role, but if I'm a Buckeye fan, I'm a heck of a lot more nervous because if you're a Spartan, you still finish with double-digit wins, go to a great bowl, and no one expected you to beat Ohio State. But if you're Ohio State, you have everything to lose because one loss for you and you're out of the playoff and it's done. And you guys know as well as I do, whether it's ridiculous or not, at Ohio State, there's one expectation, and that you play for a national title. And I respect that. I think that's why it's an elite place. But I think all the pressure, let me ask you this one. It gets to the fourth quarter, and it's within one score. Either way, Michigan State's up, Ohio State's up, doesn't matter. But the Spartans are holding their own. Does this team, who hasn't been challenged all year, hasn't been punched in the face, and I don't think they've been by a legitimate team, I want to add. Obviously, Indiana was close. How do they respond? I thought Indiana lost that game more than Ohio State won it. And I haven't seen a killer instinct. Now, in credit, I haven't seen it from Michigan State either. But I want to see Ohio State put your foot on someone's. It's the same way I want, people to deal with terrorists. Just go find them and kill them. I'm tired of all this. Let's pacify them. Just kill them. And I want to see a national championship team go put their foot on someone's throat and crush them. And you haven't seen that killer instinct from Ohio State, which we saw last year when they made their run to the Big Ten championship and then do the playoff. That's, to me, the wild card in this.
I would agree, because if it comes down to our special teams have been, to call them shaky is being very generous to the term shaky, So I would absolutely be very tense if it came down to a last-second field goal and Ohio State had to drive the length of the field. That's just for what it's worth.
I guarantee you they probably practicing a play called the Wolverine or something where they're not going to be punting with like 10 seconds left.
Well, I'm just going to tell you this. I appreciate you bringing that up. And for your listeners who don't know, with 10 seconds left on the clock when Michigan State did the play to beat Michigan, let me tell you the kind of guy Dantonio is. When they arrived at the big hole that day in Ann Arbor, Dantonio and the buses pull up, and Dantonio said to the team, we're going to sit here in silence for 10 seconds. Now, this is before the game. He said, because every big game comes down to 10 seconds, and I want you to think what you're going to do to help this team win with 10 seconds left on the clock. And lo and behold, if you watch the DVR of the Michigan State-Michigan game, you will see the Spartan players, when they were about to do that last punt, were jumping and dancing and shouting. something you never would see in that position. And they're like, we're going to win this. Remember what Coach said on the bus? And that's what happens. I will tell you this. The Spartans are coming up loose. I've never seen them this loose in the entire Dantonio era ever. They have nothing to lose, and Ohio State does. And I think Dantonio likes playing with that chip on his shoulder. And he reminds them, hey, remember, a lot of you guys from Ohio, Urban didn't want you. So this is your chance in their house to send a message you were wrong in front of all your family. Connor Cook talked today about how many of his friends went to Ohio State, and they didn't want him. Same way with Chris Fry and others. And so, again, I think that's the angle that Michigan State plays. And if you're the Buckeyes, this is a team that's been there, done it. This is a team with 10 seconds to go in their biggest game, which is Michigan on the road. They're dancing and jumping because they think they're going to win when they're about to get the ball punted to them. And this is a team that's been there, done it, and that's what they're looking for. And again, I think that's an interesting edge to this game. If Ohio State had played like I think Ohio State could, I wouldn't have given Michigan State a chance in this game, but I do because of the way the Spartans are and, quite frankly, the way the Buckeyes are.
That's really good stuff, I'll tell you.
Well, thank you for giving me nightmares for the rest of the week. But
I know. I'm having flashbacks to the 90s. Thanks. All right. Speaking of Connor Cook and Michigan State's offense averaging 406.3 yards and 32.9 points per game, who on the Spartans offense should Buckeye fans be keeping an eye out for?
Well, one name, Connor Cook. And I know that's the obvious, but Michigan State, even when Indiana put 10 men in the box, when Purdue did it, when Air Force did it, Michigan State still just kept running and running and running and running. At one point at Michigan in the second and third quarter, they were like 80% of first downs. They ran the ball and were getting a yard. If I'm Ohio State, if I'm watching Connor Cook throw the ball early, and he doesn't have to throw it every time. Michigan State, you can run on Ohio State, but you have to use the pass to force them out of the box, and then Michigan State will be able to run. If Michigan State's using a pass-to-run philosophy on Saturday, that's bad news if you're a Buckeye. So I would just simply watch Connor Cook as he's throwing the ball. That's, to me, going to be the biggest one.
Two more questions for you.
Sure.
Spartan defense this year, right now, is currently ranked number 46 in the nation.
Uh-huh.
Us as Buckeye fans, not used to actually them being ranked that low. I think they're allowing 120-some yards per game on the ground, which usually you're like at under 180 yards or whatever. Correct. Is this because of injuries, or do you think a lot has to do with Pat Narduzzi going to Pitt for the head coaching job?
I've said before the year I did not think the loss of Pat Narduzzi was a big effect on the field. I thought the biggest effect was he was the only coach on staff that could walk into Mark Dantonio's office and shut the door and ask him, what the hell are you thinking? He had the coach that had Dantonio's ear, and he was the guy that would say to Dantonio, this is a bad idea, don't do this. And Dantonio trusted him and listened to him. I think every coach needs that guy in his staff that will speak reality to him. And quite frankly, a lot of coaches don't like to put those guys on their staff. I've heard, and I do not know this, so if this is wrong, I'm not claiming it to be fact, but I've heard Herman was kind of that guy with Urban, that he was the guy that could say something to him. I know Charlie Strong was that way at Florida with Urban, that when you're a better coach when you have that guy, because nobody's a savant in this. That's why the game is so intense. But I think the biggest thing has been injuries. They had two NFL guys and that were out in the defensive backfield for the season. Vontae Copeland broke his neck. R.J. Williamson blew up a knee early. Then, Darian Hicks, who will be back for this game, played last week, is going to be back starting in the defensive backfield. I think those stats have a lot more to do with injuries. And if you go back and watch the tape last week, they gave up some yards, but only 7 points. I think the defense is playing right now the best. And Dantonio told me that today, by the way, that it was the best game they've played all year. So if you want your team peaking for this game defensively, they are peaking.
One final question. I want to go back to the Michigan State disrespect. I know Michigan State finished basically last 2 years pretty much in the top 5. Why do you think there's such a national narrative to be so disrespectful to Spartan Nation?
Well, first of all, I think that's a great question, and I hate to wax philosophical with you, but you asked me my opinion, I'm going to give it. I think if you look at media as a whole, it has become now no longer there's very few people who will give us, the straight truth. If you're a liberal, you turn to MSNBC. If you're a conservative, you go to Fox. Everyone wants someone who's going to tell them what they want to hear. Nobody wants reality anymore. And that's disturbing to me. And what happens is we know that all you have to do is look at the numbers, and Ohio State and Michigan have much bigger fan bases than Michigan State. That's a fact. You don't like it, get over it. It's reality. And I think that ESPN plays to what gets them the attention and the numbers. Why does ESPN always pick on and basically act like they hate the Big Ten in football? Well, everyone forgets Big Ten went with Fox for their Big Ten network. They didn't go with ESPN. So ESPN doesn't have a vested interest in peaking them up, because they don't make money off of them like they do the SEC network. That's why they're slobbering love affair. It's absolutely disgusting. It's why they'll sit there and tell you that, well, you've got to have Notre Dame in the top because Notre Dame's strength of the schedule is so good, yet they would put Baylor up there who didn't play anyone. I mean, I think if Baylor would have probably lost if they played Frank Solich in Ohio. Their preseason was so terrible. And I love Frank Solich, by the way. I'm just using it as a case in point. So I would say this, is that they're going to appeal to the people that get them the most attention. And to me, I think that's disappointing and it's sad. But here's the one thing. You guys may remember Mark Dantonio went up to ESPN this year, and Urban did not make the trip, and neither did Jim Harbaugh. And they called Mark Dantonio Coach D'Antoni. They called him Mike D'Antoni. They called him all these wrong names. And seven of his 20 questions were about Jim Harbaugh. And then everyone wanted to talk about Urban Meyer. They didn't want to talk about Michigan State. Well, I'll tell you what, the most happy man with that was Mark Dantonio, because he came back and made it clear to his team, look at this. Michigan hasn't finished in the top 5 and won 2 BCS back-to-back bowl games. Neither has Ohio State. But all they want to talk about is them. So remember that. And if you want to change the conversation, you have to. It's why is Izzo successful every year? Because Izzo plays the blue-collar disrespect card. And like last year, I was joking about this today. 3 weeks before the season ended last year, people were wondering, would Michigan State make the NCAA tournament? And yet again, they end up in another Final Four. They play that angle, and D'Antonio does well. I mean, like I said, even today in his press conference, people wanted to talk about Michigan and Ohio State, not even him, and he laughed about it. And I would say this to you, that disrespect plays into his hand. If I was Urban, the first thing I would be doing is paying media people to be promoting Michigan State, because they're playing that angle and they're playing it well.
I agree. I think D'Antonio, I know we've said it on our show for the last 2 or 3 years now about what a great coach he is, what a great thing he's done for Michigan State, brought him, put him on the map, and he's made him into a true power. And it boggles my mind that nobody in the country wants to accept it or embrace it at all.
Well, I can tell you this, it doesn't bother him. In fact, he likes it. So I can just tell you, if he had his way, it would not change.
Hondo, are you making the trip down to Columbus?
Oh, yeah, I go to all of them, home and away, and I'll be there for sure. Got to come to the bus.
All right. First, we want to thank you for joining us. A lot of great stuff you dropped on us today. You, before you get out of here, anything you want to go ahead and plug?
No, if you are interested, you can follow us on Twitter when you go to @Hondo Carpenter, @HONDO, Make SpartanNation.com your homepage, or just go there and check it out, and we'll have tons of videos after the Michigan State-Ohio State game and lots of analysis and thoughts. So, and we do the same with basketball and everything else. So when the Spartans play the Buckeyes in basketball, you can get some great Ohio State coverage there. In fact, we have on my radio show as a regular Jeff Bowles, your assistant coach, who I think is one of the best assistant basketball coaches in the country, and why that guy doesn't have a head coaching job, I'll never figure that out.
Yeah, that's something for another podcast we could sit down and discuss, because definitely a big basketball fan, and I know exactly what you're saying. Chip, did you have anything else before we get out of here?
Besides thanking Hondo, do you have a final score prediction for us?
Yeah, right now I'm going to say 37-35 Buckeyes, but I'm going to say this. I don't expect Connor Cook to be 100%. I just don't know the percentage. But if he's well enough where they're not having to change the game plan, I think they're going to give the Buckeyes all they want. I still think the Buckeyes will win it because I have too much faith in Urban and his ability to get those guys going. But this is a team that has not played motivated. This is a team that struggled. And to me, it's going to be fascinating to see how they respond.
Well, this has been a tremendous interview. We really appreciate you giving us some of your time and all of your wonderful insight, because I can't wait to get the reaction from our fans, because I think some of the background information about Mark Dantonio and some of the players and everything that a lot of Ohio State fans, even fans like Shannon and myself, we had no idea about some of those conversations that you shared with us. So thank you so much for all of the tremendous background and insight that you gave us tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, not a problem.
Safe travels to Columbus.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
You are listening to Men in the Scarlet and Gray podcast on Buckeye Sports Radio, a V Sporto channel.
Here they come, yo. Here they come.
One's a riverboat gambler, picking with his gut. The other is cold, calculating, which makes Vegas nervous. Now it's time for Mott Sag's Pickup. Who are you going to ride with? All right, it's time for our Mott Sag Pick'em segment. I lost track of who did what last week, but I know I won at least one game.
You did. You gained because I picked I picked Baylor. I picked Baylor, and you had Oklahoma. So you're still down, but
like 2 games, I think.
About 4 actually, but that's okay.
I think it's less than that, but
I'm sure you do. But so
don't make me go back and listen to all the shows and pull it up.
That's my fault.
I'm gonna have to before next week.
Okay.
All right, let's kick it off with Perdon't against number 6 Iowa. It's a 12 p.m. kickoff. Who are you going to ride with on this?
Well, I think Iowa at home, 12 o'clock. Yeah, I think Purdue. They're playing better, but I think Iowa at home. I'll go with the Hawkeyes.
There's a possibility that Iowa can let their guard down and Purdue can come in there and play lights out. Purdue's only playing for pride right now. I just don't see them able to shut down the rushing attack of Iowa, so I'm going to go with the Hawkeyes on this. The barn burner here, Indiana versus Maryland at 12 p.m. Do you think Indiana can get their first Big Ten win?
I do, and I think it's going to come here at Maryland. I think I will say this much for Indiana. They have played their hearts out. I'm not sure if if it's going to be enough for them to make it to a bowl game. I would strongly urge the powers that be at Indiana University keep Kevin Wilson, because he finally has that program pointed in the right direction. So I'm going to go with the Hoosiers at Maryland.
I just want to point out the team up north and Ohio State both went into Indiana. I'm not going to say who's better based on this team scored this many points and did this, and this team went to overtime. That's not what I'm going to say. The Hoosiers at home really came out and played against Ohio State, and they really played against that team up north. You could see that their defense was just totally gone because they don't have the depth or anything like, in Ohio State or anything like that. And you can see that the depth for that team up north, blah, blah, blah. But Maryland is like, I got the stat here somewhere, I forget. They're like 109th, I believe. No, I'm sorry. They're 114th in their offense. You don't have to have a good defense in order to beat that. And Indiana's got, I got it somewhere, but apparently not here. Obviously, their offense is ranked a heck of a lot better, so I'm going to go with the Hoosiers on the road. Illinois versus the Minnesota Dilly Bars, 12 p.m. kickoff. What are your thoughts on this one?
Minnesota. I think Illinois, again, they're solid defensively, but I think Minnesota at home, I think they'll do it in the confines of TCF Bank Stadium. So I'm going with the Golden Gophers.
Yeah, I think the Golden Gophers are going to pull this one out. It just, I know that Ohio State shut down their offense this past weekend. Definitely going to go with Minnesota on this one. All right, number 14, that team up north versus the Pennsylvania Kittens at 12 p.m.
Interesting game. It won't surprise me if Penn State pulls off the upset because it is in Beaver Stadium. But I think that team up north, defensively, even though they really struggled against Indiana, I think they are too physical for Penn State. So I'm going to go with that team up north.
Yeah, Penn State's offense is ranked 103rd right now. And going against that defense that team up north has, I don't see it as much of a matchup. Could be wrong. But I'm going to unfortunately go for the Wolverines for the big showdown. Number 9, Michigan State coming into Columbus with College game day against number 2, Ohio State at 3:30. You're going to be at this game.
Yes, I am.
Oh, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm just going
to wait before we answer. We got to go against the Buckeyes again, right? Like last year.
No.
We could propel. we helped propel them, right?
I'm sure we did. I honestly, I think it's going to come down to what we discussed earlier, the idea of Ohio State's pass protection along the offensive line against arguably the best defensive line in the country. And let's put it out there. Connor Cook, if he is healthy, this is going to be a close game. If Connor Cook is unable to play or struggling due to injury issues, which is entirely possible, Ohio State will probably win this one comfortably. I think Connor Cook he's a gamer. I think he's going to go out there and play his heart out. I don't know if he'll be able to finish the game. That remains to be seen. I think Ohio State, it'll be back and forth, but I think they will pull it out in the fourth quarter late. I think Ezekiel Elliott, I think this will be the hardest 100-yard game that he will have. And I'm going to say Ohio State 28, Michigan State 20.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to win their 31st Big Ten game in a row. I think that's the streak that they're on, is 30 Big Ten games. But, yeah, I'm going to go with the Buckeyes on this one. Everything you said, I'm pretty much going to mirror. And this is one that's going to be too close to give some kind of scoring prediction, maybe 28-24 or something like that. I'm not sure, but I'm going to go with the Buckeyes. Number 20, Northwestern versus number 21, the Wisconsin Badgers. That's a 3:30 kickoff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a 3:30 kickoff on BTN in Camp Randall. I this is a tough one to call just because I think both teams are, they're just somewhat evenly matched. I'm just going to give it to Wisconsin just because it's at home.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go with the Wisconsin on this one also. Let's see here. All right, I know we got Rutgers at Army, but okay, whatever. Let's get into some very important national games. The first one on the docket, I know you're going to be, we can't be sitting there watching it because we're going to be at the game, but I know you're DVRing this game. This is the hottest game of the season. Charleston Southern at number 3, Alabama.
When Paul Feinbaum, who is basically the unofficial mouthpiece of the SEC network, comes out and...
I think he's official since he's getting paid by them.
Well, so. he let them have it the other day, the whole conference, and deservedly so, for this mockery, this travesty of
it's ridiculous
scheduling.
Absolutely ridiculous. And you want to come at us, Big Ten fans, SEC Nation, and say we have a weaker schedule and your schedule's so tough and that's why we got to play FCS teams and all this. How many ranked teams do you guys have right now? How many does the Big Ten have? Okay, that's all I got to say.
So, yeah, Alabama will destroy them. And I realize that Charleston Southern is actually a highly ranked FCS team. However, it is a mockery and a travesty that this game is being scheduled. They should refund their fans at the door for making them. I have no idea how much these tickets are, but they should make them. The Alabama athletic department and the SEC should be issuing ticket refunds for all of these because it's. I mean, it's basically legalized stealing.
It is. It's just what. All right, let's move on to something more important. Got a couple of really big matchups for the Big 12 conference that have some serious implications on the whole picture for the national playoffs. We've got number 11 TCU with 1 loss against number 7 Oklahoma with 1 loss at 8 o'clock. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going with Oklahoma, and I'll tell you what, that team looks very, very dangerous right now. Watching last weekend, Baylor, Oklahoma, I think TCU is Trevon Boykin is, to the best of my knowledge, is kind of nursing some injuries. I'm sure he will probably go. He'll probably be healthy enough to play. But I think Oklahoma at home, I feel very comfortable with the Sooners in this one.
Oh, so you're coming over to the dark side finally.
I didn't say conclusively, but
yeah, like I said last week, they have they have the strongest defense in the Big 12. So I'm going to ride with the Sooners. Something tells me that there's going to be a really big matchup. I think is it next week or the week after that's getting ready to come up in the state of Oklahoma. All right, we got number 3, Baylor, who just lost to Oklahoma against the undefeated Oklahoma State Cowboys. It's at Oklahoma State, and I forgot to write down what time it was, so.
I think that's like a 7 o'clock game, something of that nature.
That's possible.
But as a matter of fact, I'm going to go with, it is. It's a 7:30. It's 7:30 on Fox. And it's in Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater. So I'm going with Oklahoma State. I think, as you just said, the November 28th, that game is shaping up to be the de facto Big 12 conference championship game. At the beginning of the season, everyone thought it would be something different, but I think that Oklahoma State is going to be too much for Baylor, and I think they will still be undefeated after Saturday night.
Well, I've been tossing back and forth on this one, only because of the simple fact of Oklahoma State's played a couple of close games, and a win's a win. I know I've said it before, whatever. But Baylor's got a very explosive offense, but now the quarterback that they have now, he's kind of dinged up a little bit. So I don't see that offensive firepower being able to take out the Cowboys. So I think I'm going to go with you and go Oklahoma State.
It's time now for Ask Matsang. What's your question?
Can I kick it? Can I kick it? Can I kick it? Can I kick it?
All right, it's time for our Ask Matsang, our very popular segment here. We'll go ahead and start off with, first of all, I don't know if you want to join me in this, Chip, but there's been a request by somebody to a happy birthday, I guess, or something, a Buckeye birthday. I don't know. Happy birthday, Gio.
Oh, happy birthday, Gio.
All right. Speaking of Gio, let's hit one of his questions. Should I root for the Browns to suck so they can pick Bosa number 1? I'll let you start this off because my answer is going to be really simple.
Well, you don't have to root for the Browns to suck, first of all, because pretty much I think it's a fait accompli. I think that's pretty much, it's kind of like asking, is water wet? That pretty much already has happened. So as far as picking Joey Bosa number one, and maybe I'm going to be contrary to a lot of other Cleveland Browns fans' hopes and dreams, I absolutely would be ecstatic if Joey Bosa was the Cleveland Browns' number one pick, because as much as I believe the Cleveland Browns need help in just about any area on the football team, especially at the quarterback position, in my humble estimation, Joey Bosa is the best player in this next NFL draft, and you can always find other players later in the draft to build the team around. But so Joey Bosa going number one to the Cleveland Browns, I would have no problem with that whatsoever.
I wouldn't have a problem with it. I know I said I was going to have a short answer, but number one, based on what was released yesterday, and I've had talk with other people beforehand, I've seen something at the spring game. I don't think Bosa's coming out, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm always wrong, so don't go with my opinion, because I was wrong about D'Angelo Russell. But I'm just going to say one simple fact. Gio, I hate you. All right.
And this is just moments after wishing him a happy birthday. But
I know. Well, I mean, it just Browns and suck and just stab me in the heart. I can't even watch them. I can't.
I'm telling you, rake leaves and you'll be.
There's so many more. I don't know if you saw the tweet I put out the other day. Watching paint, cleaning the bathroom.
There you go.
Just so many more things more enjoyable than watching them right now.
There you go. All right, let's try and turn this around so you're not feeling stabbed in the heart. So,
well, since we're already on negative subjects, let's go ahead and hit Beth's question.
Okay. All right, so we're going to just continue down the downward spiral.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. I mean, we're already going downhill,
okay.
So let's just keep going.
All right, so Elizabeth at OSU Girl 47, in honor of, and I'm not sure how I'm supposed to. Am I supposed to? Michigan. Okay. The next 2 weeks, what is your most gut-wrenching memory? So you're already full of piss and vinegar about this whole topic. So I'm just going to let you continue.
Well, I'm going to go, and seems like so long ago, but it's still in my heart and in my mind. I still see it every day. Like we were talking before the show here. I still see him riding on the bike. I call him Mr. Bubblegum. Bianca Batuka. Oh, still sends shivers down my spine. I think it was the last person to rush for over 300 yards against Ohio State. My other one, and this has to put Sparty into it, is 1998 when Sparty came into Columbus and beat number one Ohio State then. The 90s were so bad that I even made a joke on Twitter the other day that I can't buy Cooper tires because if I ever have to drive in that state, I'm afraid they're going to give out on me.
Well, since we're, reliving traumatic memories and things of that nature, I agree with you about the 1998 loss to Sparty, considering the fact that Ohio State was not only ranked number one, but Michigan State, I think, wound up 6-6 that year or something of that nature. They were not a good team, and to lose to an unranked team like that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Nick Saban, when he was still the head coach at Michigan State. So that's I can see the punt landing and hitting off Nate Clement's leg, which kind of started the downward spiral of that game.
Wait, you mentioned Nick Saban being a Big Ten coach. Now, wouldn't the SEC owe their dominance to the Big Ten? Oh, wait, that's another question.
Another topic for another time. So I remember Bianca Batuka running all over Ohio State. That's scary to think about. That was 20 years ago because that was 1995. And that was when, Terry Glenn made the unfortunate comment about how, Michigan is nobody, which was kind of like the motivational fuel for the Wolverines to go out and do what they did. Believe it or not, as bad as both of those were, I say, to me, what was the most gut-wrenching of all was 1996 when that team up north came in, again, a very mediocre, unranked team, and Sean Springs slipped, and Ohio State, that was Joe Germain started for the first time, even though he had been alternating with Stanley Jackson, and Ohio State lost 13-9. And when you consider the fact that Ohio State was number 2, they were arguably 4 points, 5 points away from, if Ohio State had won that game, they would have gone to the Rose Bowl, played Arizona State, which was also undefeated at the time. Ohio State could have won the national title that year if not for that game. So to me, that one is the most gut-wrenching. That team team was loaded. That team was, I mean, you're talking Orlando Pace wound up being the number 1 pick in 1997. Mike Vrabel, Matt Finkus. I mean, there were just so many. Sean Springs, I just rattled off, right there. Orlando Pace.
They were picked to win the national championship that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were just dominant. So that team, I would have to say 1996, and we already covered the 1998 Sparty. So I'm going to put it on at OSU Girl 47. As much as we love these questions, is we are going to co-opt and give you credit. Of course, we're going to say next week we want to talk about our most happy and fondest memories of Michigan. So that will be an Ask Matzag question. We'll give you credit, of course, but we're co-opting it since
we're going positive.
Exactly.
Next week. Speaking of positive, let's turn the ship around.
Okay. So I think this one, will there be special plays for Braxton in the final game? This is from at Ron JW1. I think there will be. I think Urban Meyer, because Ron JW asked another question asking, was Braxton a decoy versus Illinois with greater things to come? I don't think Braxton Miller was a decoy against Illinois. I think Coach Meyer even said that they tried to get the ball to Braxton Miller on a couple different occasions against Illinois, were unable to do so. It was frustrating for Braxton Miller. I think it was obviously frustrating for Coach Meyer. So focusing on the positive, the final home game in Ohio Stadium for Braxton Miller, I am confident there will be special plays involved for Braxton Miller in his final appearance in Ohio Stadium as an Ohio State Buckeye.
I think you could take that to the bank. Based on the simple fact of Urban Meyer's love and affection for Braxton Miller, what Braxton Miller has done for this team, this is his very last game in the Horseshoe. That's sad to say, heartbreaking to say, but all good things must come to an end, I guess. But everything that he's been through, and I think also something's telling me that Urban is about to step in and take over the offensive play calls. And we're going to see a lot of different things possibly to where Mr. Khaki Pants next week, when he starts breaking down the game film, he's going to be like, oh, crap. I have this feeling. I'm hoping I'm totally right on this one. But, yeah, I definitely think that they're going to have some special plays for him for his final game. Let's see here. OSU Girl 47. Has Tressel ball rubbed off in Urban and offensive coordinators? I'll let you go ahead and start that one.
I'm not sure if it necessarily is deliberate. I think they might be holding some things back. I think Ohio State is with Ed Warner. I kind of anticipated this year Ed Warner being a little more conservative than Tom Herman was, just being the nature of an offensive line coach. So traditionally he would favor the running game. Nothing against Tim Beck, just don't know enough about him and how familiar and comfortable he is in a new environment. So I think there might be a little bit more conservative of an approach. You just said maybe Urban Meyer, he might become a little bit more involved in the play calling the next couple of weeks, but it might just be Ed Warner might just be a little more cautious of an individual than Tom Herman.
I believe you're right on that. I'm going to sit there and say no, but I'm not sure what to make of the staff anymore. And like I said earlier, I'm starting to lose confidence in them. It just seems like they're having difficulty trying to figure it out how to spread the ball out to their playmakers in order to let their playmakers make that play. It's something to me, it doesn't seem right as far as them being able to take care of or take advantage of any kind of mismatches. Now, I know that the Zone 6 group is kind of depleted and everything, and if you had, a couple of the players that aren't out for the year and playing, it might be a little bit different. But then again, I'm not sure based on it. It just doesn't seem right. Something just doesn't seem right. Our last question, I believe we have, or do we have two more?
I see something from Gio asking.
Oh, about the Hall of Fame,
Hall of Fame. Well, Bucks who are possibly playing their last game at the Shoe versus Michigan State could fill most schools' Hall of Fames. And so I guess what he's saying is Ohio State has so many players that would fill most schools' Hall of Fame. That's the way I interpreted that question. I'm not really sure from Gio, but yeah, I mean, Joey Bosa is definitely a Hall of Fame candidate down the road. Ezekiel Elliott, let's just call it what it is. I think Ezekiel Elliott, he'll be his last game in Ohio Stadium. I think right there, those are two obvious ones. It's entirely possible that somebody like a Taylor Decker,
Braxton Miller, just depending on where they, in terms of where they fit stat wise, I think, I think those four players for sure are at least very probable candidates to become Ohio State Hall of Famers. And it wouldn't surprise me if Joey Bosa and Ezekiel Elliott, depending on how the season finishes up, and I'll throw Braxton Miller in there too, could possibly wind up in the College Football Hall of Fame. I agree. I definitely agree. Not including this year, but just some of the stuff that Braxton's done the last 2 years, he should definitely be, considered. Bosa is just, like I said earlier, dude wrecked a triple team basically. How many players have you ever seen do that? And it's the thing about Bosa is just he keeps going and going, and it's just boom, boom, boom. If I ever seen that dude in a alleyway, I'm turning around and running, and I'm probably probably about the same size as him. Alrighty, unfortunately, that's going to do it for us here today on Men of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. Hate saying goodbye, Chip, but so much fun talking college football. It's so hard to say goodbye. We want to thank Hondo Carpenter from SpartanNation.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Hondo Carpenter. Really great discussing the Spartans and Mark Dantonio with them. We also want to thank our listeners for joining the show by submitting questions. If you have any questions, feel free to hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag AskMotsag or email us askmotsag@motsag.com. We truly do enjoy interacting with you guys all the time. You can listen and subscribe to our show on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, Tuned In. Just put Men in the Scarlet and Gray in the search bar, and of course, you can listen to us on Buckeye Sports Radio. Don't forget to follow Buckeye Sports Radio on Twitter at Buckeyes Radio. Chip, where can folks find your work and your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is at ChipMinnick, MINNICH. My work can usually be found on menofthescarletandgray.com, and I'm also a contributor to athlonsports.com. I have a personal blog, primarily directed around Ohio State football, but I also sometimes throw in some Cleveland Browns things when I feel a little, sorry for myself, and I'm, lamenting how can I watch such quality football on Saturday and I go to such dismal viewing on Sundays, and that's from themindofminnick.blogspot.com.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about them. You can find mine along with our other talented writers on menofscarletandgray.com also. And you get my Twitter is at smsummers84. That's at smsommers84. You can follow the show on Twitter at Motsag Podcast and like us on Facebook. For Chip Minnick, I am Shana Summers. Thank you for listening to Men of Scarlet and Gray podcast on Buckeye Sports Radio, a V Sportal channel. Talk to you all next week. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.